Serena had woken up that morning expecting to finalize the details of her next album release, not to have her world shattered with a single email. As she scrolled through her inbox, sipping on her morning coffee in her Los Angeles home, her heart nearly stopped at the subject line. A new beginning. The sender, her husband, Dominic. Confused, she clicked on it, and what she saw made her grip on the mug falter. Attached was a photo of Dominic, his arms wrapped around Melody, a younger woman with a smug smile standing in front of their private recording studio in Nashville, the same studio where Serena had written and recorded her most successful hits. The message below was as cold as it was devastating. "I've moved on, Serena. Melody and I are living at the studio now, and I've already begun the transition. It's in my name, so don't bother fighting it. My lawyers will be in touch." Serena felt her stomach turn, the sheer arrogance of his words cutting deeper than she thought possible. For a moment, she simply sat there, stunned. 5 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, and this was how Dominic had chosen to end it? With an email and a stolen legacy. Not even the decency of a conversation. But the initial shock quickly gave way to something else, a slow-burning, ice-cold fury. Serena had spent her life building her career from the ground up, fighting to establish herself as one of the most respected singer-songwriters and record label owners in the industry. Dominic had been there, of course, but always in her shadow. Never the creative force. Never the true architect of success. Yet here he was, acting as if he had the power to erase her. As if she would just sit back and watch him take everything she had worked for. Her gaze flicked to the framed platinum records on the wall, reminders of the music she had poured her soul into. Her fingers tightened around her phone as a plan began to form in her mind. Dominic thought he had won. He thought she would break down, maybe even beg him to reconsider. But he had made a fatal mistake. He underestimated the woman he had betrayed. Serena's career had taught her one valuable lesson. In the music industry, those who play dirty don't always get an encore. Serena took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. She had survived brutal contract negotiations, industry betrayals, and the cutthroat world of the music business. She wasn't about to let Dominic and his little side project break her now. Her first instinct had been to call him, to demand answers, to scream at him for what he had done. But she stopped herself. He wanted a reaction. He wanted her to panic, to lash out, to act impulsively. That's what weak people did when they lost control. And Serena, she never lost control. Instead, she opened a new tab on her laptop and logged into her joint bank account with Dominic. Her pulse spiked as she saw the withdrawals. Hundreds of thousands of dollars missing. Transfers had been made in small amounts over the past several months, funneled into an offshore account she didn't recognize. Her fingers tightened into a fist. This wasn't just about an affair. This was premeditated theft. Serena immediately pulled up her separate business accounts, the ones solely under her name. She had been smart enough to keep Dominic away from the financial side of her record label, and sure enough, those accounts were untouched. At least he hadn't been able to get to those. Still, the fact that he had drained their joint finances without hesitation meant he was playing a much bigger game, and she needed to figure out exactly what that was. Her next call was to Vanessa, her lawyer, a no-nonsense industry veteran who had helped Serena negotiate ironclad contracts over the years. "I need you to pull up every legal document tied to the Nashville studio," Serena said, her voice steady despite the fury burning inside her. "I don't care if Dominic's name is on the deed. I want to know if there's a loophole, anything that keeps it under my control." Vanessa hesitated for only a second before responding. "I'll get on it. And Serena, don't contact him. Let him think he's ahead." Serena nodded, already one step ahead. Dominic believed he had already won, but what he didn't realize was that Serena had spent years dealing with powerful executives who had tried to screw her over. He was nothing compared to them. He thought she would crumble? He had no idea who he was dealing with. Serena turned to her laptop and pulled up the security system for the Nashville studio. Dominic had forgotten one important detail. Serena had installed hidden surveillance cameras inside the recording booths and office spaces for security purposes, and just as she suspected, footage of Dominic and Melody was there, proof of his betrayal, his arrogance, and most importantly, his theft of her business assets. Her hands no longer shook. She had everything she needed to burn him to the ground. Serena sat at her desk, her laptop glowing in the dim morning light, her heart pounding in time with the ticking of the clock. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just some impulsive affair or midlife crisis. Dominic had been planning this for months, maybe even years. He hadn't just left her. He had been slowly, methodically siphoning money, setting himself up for a clean break with everything that should have been hers. But what he didn't realize was that Serena wasn't just a musician. She was a businesswoman, a strategist, and now, a woman with a vendetta. Her phone buzzed. Travis, her manager. "You need to see this," he said, his tone sharp. Within seconds, her inbox lit up with screenshots. Melody's social media was flooded with photos of her inside Serena's studio, lounging on the custom leather couch Serena had picked out, sipping wine from the custom glasses she had bought, even posing in front of platinum records that Serena had earned. But it wasn't the photos themselves that made Serena's stomach tighten. It was the captions. "Finally getting the recognition I deserve. Big things coming soon. Every queen needs a king. And I've got the best. Writing sessions in our new space. Excited for the future. Our," she called it hers. The sheer audacity of it was almost laughable. But then came the real punch to the gut, a video of Melody in the studio booth recording a demo. Serena recognized the song instantly. It was hers, a song she had written but never released, stored in her personal files. Dominic had stolen her unreleased music. Her hands shook, not with fear, but with rage. He hadn't just taken her money. He had taken her voice. Determined, Serena logged into their joint business records and, with a few keystrokes, accessed their financial records. What she saw made her blood run cold. Over $500,000 had been drained in carefully spaced-out transactions, all funneled into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Dominic had been moving money for months, setting up his own financial cushion before making his move. Worse, she saw evidence of contracts between Dominic and Grant Walker, Melody's father and CEO of Walker Records, one of the biggest record labels in the industry. Dominic wasn't just running away with another woman. He was aligning himself with Serena's biggest competitor. It all made sense now. The withdrawals, the secrecy, the sudden business trips. Dominic had been setting the stage to strip her of everything, her label, her money, even her music. And he thought she wouldn't notice. He thought she wouldn't fight back. Serena's lips curled into a smirk. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. Serena's pulse was steady now. Too steady. The kind of calm that came before a storm. She wasn't just angry anymore, she was calculating. She had spent years perfecting her craft, navigating contracts, and dodging music industry sharks who thought they could manipulate her. If Dominic thought he could outmaneuver her, he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Her next call was to Vanessa, her lawyer, who had already begun pulling every legal document tied to the studio, their finances, and, most importantly, Dominic's contractual obligations to their label. As Vanessa spoke, Serena scrolled through her business files, bypassing Dominic's old login credentials. He had tried to access her financials, but he had been locked out months ago. He wasn't smart enough to cover his tracks, and Serena was more than capable of finding the breadcrumbs he left behind. "Serena," Vanessa said sharply, her voice tight with urgency. "You need to hear this. We found emails between Dominic and Grant Walker. They've been planning this for over a year. Serena's breath hitched, but she forced herself to focus. What exactly did you find? Vanessa took a breath. Dominic's been negotiating a deal with Walker Records to sell the contracts of the artists signed to your label. He's claiming that since you were married, he had a direct hand in managing your business, meaning he has a stake in your assets, including your catalog. Serena's grip on her phone tightened. This wasn't just about money or an affair anymore. This was a hostile takeover. Dominic wasn't trying to walk away with just her studio. He was trying to claim ownership of her entire career. Her laptop pinged. Another email from Travis, her manager. She clicked it open, and her stomach twisted. More evidence. Screenshots of contracts showing Melody was being fast-tracked as a breakout artist, under Serena's label name. Dominic and Grant had planned to rebrand the entire company, quietly transitioning power away from Serena, while she was too distracted by the divorce to stop them. They weren't just stealing her money, they were stealing her empire. And then came the final, unforgivable blow. A contract draft dated 3 months prior, in which Dominic was listed as Melody's executive producer, offering her a deal using songs that Serena had written. She exhaled slowly, tapping her fingers against her desk. This wasn't just theft. This was a complete erasure of her legacy. Dominic had gambled everything, thinking she wouldn't notice. Serena leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. He was about to regret every single move he had made. Serena didn't believe in second chances when it came to betrayal. Dominic had played his hand, and now it was her turn. But unlike him, she wasn't going to make a sloppy, arrogant move. No, she was going to let him think he had won, right until the moment his world collapsed. First, she forwarded every damning email, contract, and financial transfer record to Vanessa. "Lock down my assets," she instructed, "and flag every attempted transaction from Dominic's accounts. I don't want him spending another stolen cent." Vanessa confirmed that Serena still held controlling interest in the label, meaning Dominic's deal with Walker Records was worthless without her signature. Next, Serena reached out to Travis, her manager, and leaked a select portion of the documents, just enough to get the music industry buzzing. The whispers spread fast. Walker Records was attempting a hostile takeover of Serena's label, and Dominic was behind it. Labels and media outlets loved a scandal, and before long the industry was watching Dominic's every move. Then came the final act, setting Dominic up for his biggest and most humiliating fall. Through the security footage she had accessed, Serena knew Dominic was hosting a launch party in Nashville that weekend, an event meant to showcase his latest discovery, a melody, and announce his new role at Walker Records. It was the perfect moment for him to bask in his imagined victory, so Serena did exactly what he expected. Nothing. She remained silent, letting him believe she was too crushed to fight back. But behind the scenes, she was orchestrating his downfall. She made a discreet call to a trusted journalist, feeding them exclusive proof of Dominic's stolen contracts, his attempted financial fraud, and even the leaked footage of Melody recording Serena's unreleased song. Then, she called in a favor from a high-powered exec at a major rival label, making sure Walker Records' board got wind of the scandal before the party even started. As the event unfolded, Serena watched from her home in LA, sipping a glass of wine, her laptop streaming the chaos in real time. Just as Dominic stepped on stage to introduce Melody as his next superstar, his phone started buzzing uncontrollably. In the crowd, industry heads began checking their notifications, whispering, pulling up the leaked emails and contracts. Then came the final blow. A cease and desist order delivered in real time to Walker Records, blocking them from moving forward with Melody's contract and freezing Dominic's stolen assets. Serena smirked. Dominic had stolen her music, her money, and tried to erase her legacy. Now she had erased him instead. Serena leaned back in her chair, watching the live footage of Dominic's grand event crumbling before his eyes. It was almost poetic, the way his smug expression shifted to confusion, then panic, as phone screens in the audience lit up with breaking news articles exposing his fraud. His voice faltered mid-sentence as whispers rippled through the crowd, executives exchanged tense glances, and his so-called allies suddenly distanced themselves, pretending they had no idea what was happening. Then, the real chaos began. Walker Records' CEO Grant Walker stormed onto the stage, his face a mask of fury. He had just been informed that Serena had blocked the acquisition of her label and filed formal complaints against Walker Records for attempting to steal her intellectual property. With the industry watching, Grant had no choice but to disavow Dominic on the spot. Walker Records does not engage in unethical business practices, Grant said coldly, effectively throwing Dominic under the bus. Security escorted Dominic off the stage, but before he could slink away, he was met by two plainclothes officers waiting near the exit. Bank fraud, wire transfers, stolen assets. The charges had piled up fast once Serena's legal team flagged his financial transactions. The moment the police put handcuffs on Dominic, the cameras flashed, immortalizing his downfall. The video would circulate the internet within minutes, and by morning, Dominic's name would be industry poison. Serena exhaled slowly, satisfaction washing over her as she scrolled through social media. Melody was crying in the corner, mascara running, as her dreams of a music career disintegrated in real time. A new headline popped up: Serena Blake outsmarts ex-husband's attempted music industry coup. It was done. Dominic had tried to take everything from her: her money, her label, her music, even her voice. Now, he had lost everything instead. The morning after Dominic's spectacular downfall, Serena woke up to headlines that told the world exactly what had happened. Disgraced producer arrested in fraud scandal, Walker Records faces backlash after attempted takeover, and Serena Blake reclaims her empire. She scrolled through her phone, watching the industry and public rally behind her. Fans flooded social media with messages of support. Artists under her label publicly condemned Dominic, and music executives who had once stayed neutral lined up to collaborate with her. Her next move was simple. Serena announced a surprise album release. The album, fittingly titled Phoenix, contained raw, powerful songs about betrayal, resilience, and rebirth, some of them written during the very months Dominic had been scheming against her. Within hours, pre-orders skyrocketed, proving that while Dominic had tried to steal her music, he had only fueled her greatest comeback. As she stood in her home studio, sipping coffee, she glanced at the framed email she had printed, the one Dominic had sent her when he thought he had won. It would serve as a reminder. Never underestimate a woman who writes her own story. Serena's journey is a powerful reminder that strength isn't just about talent. It's about resilience, strategy, and knowing your worth. Betrayal, especially from someone trusted, can be devastating, but the way we respond defines our future. Instead of reacting emotionally, Serena channeled her pain into strategy, proving that intelligence and patience are the ultimate weapons. Her story teaches us that preparation is power. By securing her assets, maintaining control over her business, and keeping her wits about her, she ensured that no one, no matter how close, could take what she built. It's a lesson in never blindly trusting, especially when success is involved. Contracts, legal protections, and financial independence aren't just safeguards. They're survival tools. Additionally, revenge doesn't always have to be loud. Serena didn't need to beg or seek sympathy. She let the truth and her hard work speak for itself. In the end, those who play dirty will always expose themselves. Most importantly, Serena's triumph shows that no one can steal your legacy if you refuse to let them. The greatest revenge? Thriving beyond what they ever imagined possible.